Hey, you there! Guess what? I just made a brand new video with Quest for Metal. Previously, we talked about some mad, overrated music from the likes of Wintersun, 6 Feet Under, and Queensryche. This time around, though, we're talking about some mad, underrated music from the likes of Motley Crue, Pantera, Exciter, Razor, White Wizard, and bands that I had never even heard of, truthfully, until I had seen this very video, such as Gallow Braid and Ancestors. So much cool music, it'll blow your fucking mind. Go see that video. Go fucking do it if you haven't already. I mean, since you're already here, stick around, watch this video, fuck it. You already got comfortable, but maybe after that, go say hello to Quest for Metal and go check out that video. Just a thought, just an idea. Do with that information whatever you please. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about this brand new album from Therion entitled Leviathan. And minor spoiler alert, since I know a lot of you are probably expecting me to hate this album, not only do I not hate this album, I actually kind of enjoyed it. Me and Therion have a fucking weird relationship, to say the least. I mean, I've still got a genuinely soft spot for their first 4 albums, which showcased a very epic and dreary and sinister kind of Swedish death metal with some doom and symphonic undertones. But as the years raged on and they continued to indulge in symphonic and power metal, they just lost me more and more and more. The music got so cheesy, so over the top, so pompous, so borderline pretentious that I just stopped paying attention to Therion altogether, pretty much up until 2017's beloved Antichrist. Why then did I suddenly decide to start paying attention to Therion again? I honestly don't know, or at least I don't remember at this current moment, but the fact of the matter remains, I fucking did, and it was a terrible fucking mistake, because holy fuck, that album is utter fucking garbage. Those 3 hours of boring, generic, repetitive, underproduced power and symphonic metal schlock paved the way for, hands down, one of the worst experiences I've ever had with any album in any genre, let alone metal. For these reasons, I was not especially excited for Leviathan, especially since I went in relatively blind. I didn't really bother listening to any of the promo singles beforehand, nor did I bother doing a lot of research or homework in regards to what may have inspired the record politically, socially, emotionally, or spiritually. I just kind of said, fuck it, let's dive head first into what is very likely a very shallow fucking pool. And honestly, I fully expected to hit my fucking head and have a goddamn concussion the moment I jumped in to that aforementioned pool. I fully expected to crawl out of it bleeding from the fucking skull. But then, something fascinating kind of happened. Not only did I not hit the bottom, but I was swimming. Swimming quite freely, in fact. I wasn't irritated, I wasn't in visible pain, and when I realized that the water was safe, I kind of swam around some more. And I actually kind of had some fun with this fucking thing. I'm sure that that's genuinely puzzling for some of you to hear, considering I have, on more than one occasion, told y'all that I have very little patience for symphonic and power metal, but fuck it, it's the truth. I genuinely appreciated and enjoyed much of what's on this album. It seems as though Therion has actually paid some attention to the criticisms and concerns that we've directed towards records like Le Fleur du Mal and the aforementioned beloved Antichrist, because Leviathan doesn't have a concept or an over-convoluted storyline demanding your attention over the course of like 3 fucking hours, nor does it have some unconventional or unwanted French pop cover songs with a cheesy symphonic metal paint job. The songs are surprisingly very riff-heavy, very immediate. There's an urgency to this material that I have never really expected from Therion. It's a mostly straightforward kind of symphonic heavy metal record, but perhaps most impressively, it doesn't compromise any variety or diversity along the way. Opening track Leaf on the Oak of Far, for instance, manages to balance the more lush and evocative symphonic metal of Nightwish with the gruff, old-school heavy metal fury of a band like Judas Priest. Then you have a track like Ali Dahaka, which very carefully layers some operatic vocals and Middle Eastern flavor on top of some very energetic power metal. Then you have a track like Nocturnal Light, which almost aspires to the size and scale of a Disney-esque Broadway musical number, with this very ancient and semi-mystical storytelling delivered through some incredibly bombastic and theatrical vocals. You even have a track like Eye of Algol, which stands out big time for being a much more sinister and malicious cut in comparison to the more objectively upbeat material found throughout the album. It even seems to pack a very subtle kind of melodic black metal underbite. Like, imagine Cradle of Filth, but if the operatic vocals were in the forefront of the sound rather than Danny Filth. And to be honest, we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg here. There's a lot that has been cram-packed into this record. A lot of different influences, a lot of different soundscapes and instruments. And yet, remarkably, Leviathan remains a very cohesive and even accessible record. While not quite as glitzy and sugary sweet, I am weirdly reminded of the very inviting symphonic pop metal of bands like Delane and Amaranth. Some songs definitely hit harder than others, but all things considered, there's really nothing on this record that I actively dislike. At least, as far as the songwriting is concerned, because unfortunately, as strong as that is, the production is extremely hit and miss. The horns, the strings, and the keyboards, for instance, were so transparently fake consistently across the record that they often pulled me out of the moment entirely. The guitars and the drums can be very thin and grainy at times, and their impact is not especially consistent. And in general, the album is just kinda clumsy at times. At times, you almost get the vibe that at some point during this album's development, Nuclear Blast Records straight up pulled funding directly away from this album. And it's a genuine shame because there's some really good material trying to breathe here, and it's just not getting enough air, plain and simple. I started this video thinking to myself that I would probably give this thing a genuinely enthusiastic 2.5 out of 5, but now that we've arrived at the end, I actually feel probably more comfortable giving this a 3 instead. This is legitimately a pretty decent record. It's a shame that the production value hurts this record so much, but if you're patient and not particularly picky about sound quality, then I'm sure you'll be able to find plenty of interesting little bits and pieces to dissect and enjoy. Therion fans in particular, I think, will be pretty elated with this thing, especially if you have been alienated and turned off by records like La Fleur du Mal and Beloved Antichrist. Now, I have heard a rumor that this album could, in fact, be the first entry in a 3-part album series. And honestly, I seriously hope that that is not the fucking case, because the last thing that this genuinely simple and straightforward symphonic power metal album needs to be is a fucking 3-hour slog on par with the aforementioned Beloved Antichrist. But I don't know for sure. This is just a rumor, so I suppose we'll have to cross that particular bridge if we arrive to it. Not when, but if. For now, I'll stick with my 3 out of 5. This is a lot better than I expected it to be. By no means perfect, but easily, fucking easily, the best of Therion's output in the last decade. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.